Well, here's one of my favorite tunes that Don did called The Birth of the Blues, and this was on his Banjo Special album, which ironically didn't have the tune that he wrote called Banjo Special on it. Banjo Special, the tune, is a whole nother ball of wax, and we may do that in a future video, but Banjo Special, the album, to me is probably one of the best bluegrass banjo albums ever recorded. It ranks right up there with Earl Scruggs' Foggy Mountain Banjo album as far as I'm concerned. And it is Don Reno at his peak. I mean, he is at the height of his abilities, and this whole album is absolutely incredible. It's probably one of the best things he's ever recorded to me. It's really mind-blowing. So if you've never heard it, it's on YouTube to listen to for free. And of course, it's on Amazon, and I highly recommend buying the box sets. But this is an old jazz pop tune that's been around for many years, and most people are probably familiar with Les Paul and Mary Ford's version of it. But this is going to be in the key of C, and we're going to walk right down into the C chord, just like Don did on Limehouse Blues. So it'll start like this on the fourth string on the 5th fret. So we're going to walk down to the 2nd fret. All right. Okay. Now you could slide into that 5th. I think that's the way Alan Shelton recorded it. He slid into the 5th fret. So you can do that too. Or, I like both ways. Sometimes I do it both ways like that. But so we're going to go right into this C chord. I think I'll show you the melody line first so you'll have an idea of the notes that we're trying to go after here before we get into the rolling part. So the melody line would be... So those are the melody notes we're going to be working on there. When we get to the C chord, we're going to start right off with this Dixie breakdown roll that Don does all the time. And I've covered this roll a lot. It's called the Dixie breakdown roll because that's probably the most famous roll he uses in that tune. It kind of makes the tune Dixie breakdown, the little walk down that he does. And what that is a forward roll, and you come back with the index. All right? And it's not always started on the 3rd string. He does it on the 4th, and sometimes he does on the 5th. So just keep that in mind. It's not just exclusive to the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings. It could be the 4th string or the 5th. So when we get to the C, we're going to do that on the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. So then we're going to grab this 2nd fret on your 3rd string, and then we're going to hit your G string open. So, all right. Then we're going to do this G7th, and this is your 3rd fret on the 4th and 1st string. So. So that's that melody line we were talking about earlier. So that's that G7th note. All right, but you want to hold that G7th on your 1st string too. Okay, you're going to keep your finger there on that 3rd fret on your 1st string, and then we're going to hit those melody notes that we were talking about, melody line we were talking about. But we're going to hold that 3rd fret down. All right. So let's play that. All right. So what I'm doing there is I'm holding down the 1st string on the 3rd fret, but I'm just going back and forth with the thumb and the middle finger on the 1st string. So I'm hitting these melody notes here. It's not even really a roll, it's just back and forth. All right back to your C chord, Dixie breakdown roll again, and we're hitting that. Alright, ended up on that second fret, or the second string on the first fret. Right out of your C chord. Alright, so. Alright, and this is where we're going to change the Dixie breakdown roll to the 5th, 2nd, and 1st. So, alright. Alright, now we're doing that. We're just holding that partial C. Now I'm going to grab this C7th. Alright, it's part of that melody line. Alright, so. And then we're going to go into your F chord and do that Dixie breakdown roll. So we're holding down that F position. Alright. Now while we're in this F position, we're going to grab the 3rd fret on your 2nd string, holding down, keep your F position held, but grab that 3rd fret on your 2nd string, and we're going to pinch the 1st and 2nd together. And then we're going to keep your finger mashed back here on the 1st fret on your 2nd string. So then we're going to pinch that. We're going to pinch that 1st fret on your 2nd string and your 3rd fret on your 1st string. That's right out of your F position, so you don't really need to move much there. Just drop your ring finger down to the 3rd fret. Alright. Then we're going to slide into your partial G chord, your F-shaped G. We're just going to leave your 1st string open. So what I'm doing there is I'm just sliding into that. Then I'm coming up to the 5th and rolling forward and coming back to the 3rd string on the 4th fret. So let me play it up to that point. Alright, now here comes the tricky part. There's several ways to do this. I'm going to show you a very hard way, a less hard way, and then an easy way. So you'll have a choice here, because sometimes this is really hard to get right. But on the record here, Don is coming up on the 4th string and really kind of doing something he doesn't normally do, which is jump around to get notes. Usually when Don does a single string run, he does it right in the chord shape or right around it, where he doesn't have to jump around, you know, awkwardly. But this is kind of awkward to do. It's really hard to do up to speed, but I believe this is what he's doing. If you listen to the record, it has a very drony, very low, bassy type sound to it. So, all right. So what he's doing there is he's coming up on the 5th fret on your 4th string to the 3rd, or the 5th fret on your 4th string to the 7th fret on your 4th string to the 9th fret on your 4th string. So then to the 5th fret on your 3rd string to the 7th fret on your 3rd string and to your F-shaped C, which is your 10th fret on your 4th string. I think I explained that right, but it should go like this. Alright? So that's very tricky to do up to speed. Alright? But I believe that's what he's doing. If you listen to the record, it's got a very, like I said, very bassy sound to it, like he's doing it on the bass strings here. I'll show you a less hard way to do it, which still gives you some of that bass sound, and we're just going to substitute this note here on the 9th fret to the 4th fret on your 3rd string. So here's a less hard way. Okay? And I'll have to go back and listen to it, but that may be the way he's doing it, but he's definitely doing it on his bass strings. I like to come up here and grab this one on the 9th fret. To me, that sounds more like what he's doing, but he could be coming back here. Okay? So that's a little easier. The easiest way is this way. Alright? And that's a pretty common passage in a lot of tunes. All I'm doing is just running through that C chord. Nothing to it. A lot easier than this. But it sounds good to get that little bit of a slide that he's doing in there, and it's on the bass strings. It just gives it a totally different sound than... See what I mean? So, however you want to do it, there's 3 different ways there. You could try that out, whichever is easiest for you, whichever you like better. But anyway, after you come out of that... See, I missed it there. It's hard to do. Alright. We're going to do this typical walk down that Don does a lot, and that is... Alright. Now I've covered this a lot in a bunch of different tunes. It's the same old thing he does in Talk of the Town. All that kind of stuff. And all it is we're walking down... basically what he's doing is he's just walking to a 7th chord to walk us back into the C chord. So he's really playing a minor chord against your G or against your major is what he's doing. So we're going to do a E minor. This is like a D minor shape, but it's an E minor. And we're going to walk that down 1 fret to your actual D minor. Alright, and that's all there is to it. So you could either pinch all 3 of those strings, or you could brush it. Alright, I typically like to brush it. Usually when I do those double stops and triple stops, I brush things, but sometimes Don will pinch it, depending on how he wants it to sound, and it's totally up to you. Now you could also come up here to this E minor, and walk that down to this D minor. It's the same thing. Alright, it's up to you what you want to do. Alright. Okay, so when we get to that point, we're going to start over. Let's see. We're going to end up on that same thing, that same C shape, or actually a F-shaped C. Alright. So, alright, Don does a little roll like that. All I'm doing is just rolling forward. Alright. Now, this is in the bridge here, and this is where it gets a little tricky, other than that single string part. So, from here, we're going to go to an E chord. And we're going to do some of these same walk-ups that we've done in other tunes based out of a barred position. So, we're going to be mashing our fingers flat across 2 strings using double stops throughout this whole little passage here. And it sounds like this. And it's very similar to some other things I've taught, like I Wouldn't Change If I Could. It's just stuff like that, but it's based out of a barred position, so it's the same kind of walk-ups. The phrasing is what's key here, is getting the phrasing right, like he does on the record. So, what I'm doing is I'm starting here, I'm flattening my fingers down across the 8th fret on your 3rd and 2nd strings, and I'm walking up to your E on the 9th fret. Alright? And you want to make sure you get your fingers in the right location. So you want to start this with your middle finger and then walk up with your ring here on the 9th fret. Because if you start, you want to maximize your economy of motion, I guess that's what you would say. You don't want to start it with your pointer finger and then just, you're constantly jerking up and down like this trying to get the notes. You want your fingers to fall right in line so you can do it fast, especially when you get to the 1st and 2nd strings like this. See how they're going 1, 2, 3? Back and forth. So keep those kinds of things in mind when you're doing these brush licks. use the right fingers, and it'll maximize your speed. So start with your middle, come up to your ninth, and then we're going to come back here to the 7th fret on your 1st and 2nd string. Walk right up to your 9th fret again, and we're going to walk back to the 3rd and 2nd strings on the 9th. Alright, so alright, like I said, the phrasing is key here. You have to know when to pause on certain notes. So there's an actual pause right at the beginning of this, right off the bat. Alright, just have to work on that phrasing there. And we're going to come back. So there's a little bit of a repeat there, like that. Alright. We're ending up on that 3rd and 2nd string on the 9th fret. Then we're going to come back to the 1st and 2nd strings and on the 9th fret and walk back again. So we're just walking that right back to your 7th fret on your 3rd and 2nd strings. So like I said, that's why it's important to make sure your fingers are going in the right order, so you can get it up to speed. Alright. And all I'm doing there is this is all based out of your E chord on your 9th fret. And we're ending on an E7th basically. Alright. Now I added a little bit of a pull off in there. I typically like to do that kind of thing on these double stop licks like that. All I'm doing is, instead of 1, 2, 3, I'm pulling off. It's a double stop pull off basically. It's kind of like the 5/8 lick. Alright. Or actually that's the B chord for 5/8. Alright, so alright. Like I said, I'm just walking 1, 2, 3 down to the 7th fret. Now, if you listen closely to the album, I believe Don puts a little bit of a little quick hammer-on pull-off type thing in here. Or he's just pulling off. Alright. He likes to add a lot of things like that you may not pick up on the first time around. Especially live, he would like to add a lot of little flurries and pull-offs and slides and things. So, like I said, you never have to stick to just the way he did it or the way I'm showing you the lick here. You can do it however you want, add embellishments to it. Alright. Let me play that slow for you one more time. Okay. So we're in an E7 at this point, and we're going to move to an A chord. And what we're going to do is we're going to come right into this F-shaped A. And we're sliding into this A shape, or this F-shaped A. And we're hitting the 6th fret on the 3rd string, and then we're hitting the 5th fret on your 2nd string. And we're walking down to this A. So we're just doing a little bit of a roll there. Alright. So now we're in this A here. Alright, what I'm doing when I get to this A chord, the melody line here is alright, so that's what you're listening for. Alright. So when we get to this A, we're going to go to the 1st fret, and then we're going to hit the G string open to your D chord. Whoops, let me try that again. Alright. So you want to end up on that 4th fret on your 4th string. Alright. Just do a forward roll. there on your D. Then we're going to go right into the same walk down that we did earlier. Alright, you can brush it or pinch it. So that chord progression is E, A, D, back to G. Alright, so let me play that whole thing for you. Alright. So that's the bridge to it, and then it starts over. I believe that's how he ended his first break there. You just do that same lick and just kind of roll down. You're hammering on that third string on the 8th and 9th fret right out of your C chord. So, all right, and that's the whole first break. Okay, so there's not a lot of difference between the first break and the second break, just a couple little things that Don changes up here. One of the things is how he enters the second break, and it's really quite ingenious but simple at the same time. I'm not really sure how he thought of this, but it sounds really good. And what he's doing is just a single note melody line. He just begins it like this. No rolling or anything. So right after that fiddle break, right into the tune. But that first little part there, it sounds really good. I don't know why he thought of that, but I'm glad he did, because I would have never thought of doing that, just starting it right off with these melody lines. But he changes the melody line a little bit. Alright, and what he's doing here is he's hitting the G string open, then we're hitting the 4th fret, or the 4th string on the 3rd fret. So then the 1st fret on your 4th string to the 2nd fret on your 4th string. So basically what he's doing, instead of going, he's going, and it's just a little bit of a difference there that really sounds good. Alright? So from that point on, we're going to do the same thing we did the first time. So get back to the C, we're going to go into this little, it's another little change here for the G turnaround. He's going to do just a single string run through your D-shaped G. Alright, and that's your typical G run that he would do. Follow the leader, things like that. I've taught this a bunch too in some other videos, but we'll go through it real quick. You start it here on your 7th fret on your 4th string and just go 1, 2, 3. To the 7th fret on your 3rd, to the 8th fret on your 3rd, to the 7th fret on your 2nd, to the 8th fret on your 2nd. So I think I said that wrong here. It's actually the 9th fret on your 3rd. I think I said 8, but it's a pretty simple run, but it's tricky to do. Single string's hard for me to do anyway, but it's just his typical run that he likes to do a lot. It's just 1, 2, 3. All right. So he's replacing this with. All right. So then we're going to go right back into the tune. So we're back to the C, and now we're going to go into the bridge again. This is where he varies this a little bit here on the E part of the bridge. All right, and this is going to be really hard for me to explain, but it's basically just based out of your barred E, just like we did before. But what he's doing here is we're gonna be holding down the 7th fret on your 2nd string and the 9th fret on your 1st string the whole time. You want to hold that down throughout this whole thing here. And what he's doing is he's hammering on and getting to the 9th fret on your 2nd string. So we're pinching the first 2 strings together. So it's 2 hammer-ons actually. So hold that down, this 7th fret on the 2nd string, 9th fret on your 1st string, hold that down. And we're going to hammer on, fingers in a row, just like I said before. Economy of motion here. So, alright. Alright. So we're just hammering on to that 9th fret. Alright. Like I said, this is going to be hard for me to explain. I've never really broken this down. I've played it so many times I don't think about it too much, but I'll try to play it slow so you can pick it up here. What I'm doing there is I'm hammering onto that 9th to the 2nd fret, and then I'm pulling off the 8th fret on the 2nd string, and then hitting the 9th fret on your 3rd string. So back and forth like that. Then I'm going to hammer onto the 9th from the 8th fret, then pull off from the 9th, or pull off from the 8th to the 7th. Still holding this down here. These 2 notes I was telling you, hold that down and plant those the whole time. So now I'm pulling these strings. I'm pinching the first 2 strings with my index and my middle here. Then I'm going back and forth 1 2 1 2 with the thumb and index or middle on the 2nd and 1st strings. Like I said, I don't want to make this too complicated by trying to explain it, but see what I'm doing there? And you have to listen to the record and slow it down a little bit to get the amount of times he did it there. But again, you don't have to do exactly what I'm showing you here. You can mix this up and add a few more pull-offs, however you want to do it. You know, Don never played the same thing twice, so you don't have to either. You don't have to do it just the way I'm doing it here or the way Don did it. But this is be a variation of it if you wanted to do it. But yeah, so this part here in your E would go. All right, like I said, it's hard for me to slow down. That was a little off, but. All right, I hope that makes sense. And you really want those hammer-ons to sound out, so concentrate on that. You want to hear that. See, I'm not hitting the string but once. I'm only pinching that once. See? You want those to sound out. Alright, so you end up on that E7. And like I said, try to make those hammer-ons pronounced and hear them. It's kind of like the Green Mountain Hop thing where you're doing the triple pull-off. You want to hear every one of those. I'm only hitting the string once, so you want those things to stand out. Don't skip over them or slop over them. You want to really hear them. And just build that up until you can get it up to speed. Same thing here. Stuff like that. So, all right, and then we're going to go right into your A and do the same thing we did the first time. And that's the second break. Okay, well, this final break that Don did is almost the same as the first two breaks as far as the first part goes anyway. He does a few little different things here that I'll go over, and one of those things is the walk down that we did before. When you come out of the C run, all right, instead of going, Don goes, all right, and it's pretty much the same thing I showed you earlier. I think I showed you, or, all right, so that's your E minor here. All right, we're just walking that down to a D minor. So it's the same concept. We're just doing it here. But Don's not brushing the whole chord. He's just brushing the first and second strings out of that chord. So we're doing the E minor. We're just going to brush the first and second strings of that chord. So, all right. Now you could brush the whole thing. Obviously, Don did that a lot. But this particular one here, he wanted that to sound like that. So, all right. So I'm brushing that, and make sure you mute the strings with the palm of your hand on the back of the bridge here. So, all right. I'm sliding into that E minor. All right, and he lingers on that D minor a little bit. He wants that to sound out. So, all right. So then we go back into it. I missed it. All right. Now there was a little difference there. I think he put this little change in here when you come out of this. Alright, so that's a little different there. I'm sliding on the 2nd fret to the 4th fret, so I'm changing the melody line a little bit. Alright, to your F. Let me play that for you. Alright, see how that works? Now another thing that Don does here a few times is, typically we went, alright, like on the first two breaks, and there's a few times in here he actually, and he pulls off the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, so it would sound like this. Let me start from the turnaround. Whoops. So did you catch that? Alright, I'm pulling off that 3rd fret and I'm keeping this F chord down, so I'm holding that 1st fret on your 2nd string. And then sliding into your partial G that we did before. So So just a few little things in there you can add to it. Okay, so on this final bridge that Don does, we're going to be playing out of your F-shaped E chord versus your barred-shaped E that we did earlier. And if you play I Know You're Married, this part's going to be really easy for you because there's a lot of the same type licks that he does in I Know You're Married. But we're going to be playing right out of that F-shaped E. And we're going to brush the 1st and 2nd strings out of your E chord. All right, mute your bridge back here. Let me play the whole lick for you first. All right. Okay, so this starts out here on your first and second strings, like I said, out of that E chord. You're going to brush that, brush those double stops, mute the bridge, use your thumb. Then we're going to grab this partial D. All right, that's right out of your D shape. All right. Back to an F7th shape. And the reason why I say that is that we're going to mash down the 12th fret on your first and second strings with your finger here across that. That's just a E7, F7 shape, but it's an E7. So we're going to do these double stops. All right. Then we're going to come up on the third and second strings on the 14th fret. Lay your finger flat across there, and then we're going to lay our fingers flat across the 12th fret. And then we're going to go right back into your F shape. You're really going to keep your hand in this F shape all the time. You're just going to lay your fingers flat for these double stops. But back into your E chord there. Right out of your shape there. But you want to keep your finger here on the 12th fret on the third and second strings mashed down flat on both of those. Hold that down so you can lay your finger, your middle finger down on the 13th fret on the third string. You can hammer that on when you need to. Now those are all. This is all double stops. The whole thing is 2 strings at once. All right. And all we're doing is walking right up to the 4th string in that E chord. Again, then come back down to the 12th fret on your first and second string, get that 7th. All right, and I'm hammering on there. All right, it's kind of hard to explain, but I think you can get it from that if I play it slow enough here. Cool little lick. Like I said, that's just pure rock and roll. That's just Chuck Berry type stuff. Like I said, it's like I Know You're Married. It's almost the same thing, but it's just the phrasing is key. Like I said before, it's just getting this like he did it. So now we're going to go to A chord, and this is a really neat lick that Don does here. All right, that's really tricky to do and to get right. I've never heard him do anything quite like that again. It's just a really neat jazzy type lick, but I'll try to explain it to you. It's going to be hard to do, but to slow it down. But what he's doing is he's sliding into your F position A, sorry. All right, on the 4th string. Then he's hitting the 7th fret again, right out of that A position. This whole thing is right out of this A7th position, or F7th position, however you want to look at it. All right, so sliding into that 7th fret. I'm hitting it again, and then I'm hitting the 1st string on the 7th fret. So, all right. Then I'm going to do an A7th or an F7 shape. All right. So I'm hitting that 5th fret on your 1st string. Then I'm hitting the 5th fret on your 2nd string. All right. And then back to your 7th fret on the 4th string. I'm kind of learning this with you as we go along because I've never broken this down like this. All right. Then we're going to hammer on to the 6th fret from the 5th fret on the 3rd string. So, all back to the 5th fret on your 2nd string. So, and then we're going to grab the 7th fret on your 3rd string, and then we're going to hammer on to the 6th fret on your 3rd string. So, and end up on the 7th fret on your 4th string. I think I explained that right. Let me play it slow. Very tricky to do. And most of it's just up and down with the thumb and index. So down, up, kind of like a single string lick. And listen to the record and get the phrasing right. Just like the other parts, get the phrasing right, because he's really staccato. It's a staccato sound he's doing. He's letting other notes ring louder or longer. You can add a little flurries in there if you want to. All right. All right, I hope I explained that right. So let me play that whole part for you. Okay. All right, this is a little interesting thing here. When he comes out of that lick, he just hits this note out of your D chord. And before, when we did, that was that melody line. All right, so that 4th fret on your 4th string, you want to hit that again. So, like you did the first go around. He just pauses right there. He hits that note. And then he does a little variance on the walk down that he did before. However you want to do it there. So, let me play that whole bridge. However you want to do it. Something like that. I'd have to go back and listen to it, but you can just vary that if you want to, however. Then we'll start right back into it like you did the first go around. Alright, so we're going to end it the same way on that C lick. And then we're going to do that same follow the leader lick that we did before through the G. We're going to do it in C this time. So, all right. So that's all we're doing, is we're just doing that same lick that we did before. And then just end it on your C chord. This is an interesting thing. Well, let's do the follow the leader thing. Let me explain that. So it's that same one we did before through the G. We're just doing it up here in your D-shaped C this time. All right. I don't want to gloss over it too much, but I want to explain it to you. But same thing. All right. So. And it's interesting, if you listen to the record, you can hear Don miss a few things. He clips notes a little bit because it's tricky the way he's doing it. But anyway, so you ended on that. And here's a neat little thing that Don did quite a bit. He would end things on like this, especially in C. And what he's doing is he's playing an A minor against that C chord. And you can do that here when you do that final run. Alright, just a really pretty chord. And what that is your A minor up here play it up here, but we're going to do it on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. Leave your 1st string open, and you can brush it up or down however you want it to sound. Alright, so I used to do that quite a bit. And also you can do the same effect here. If your A chord is here, here's your A minor. And we can do that with the C there. We can just play the A minor against the ending C chord. So, alright. Alan Shelton used to do this kind of thing a lot, and so did Don. So anyway, I thought I'd show you a couple little variances there on the end, but that's Birth of the Blues, and you can add a bunch of different things to this. I'll say that a lot of times when I play it, I even add the triple roll in it. Stuff like that. You can add the triple roll to it. Any kind of single string you want to during the bridge. That's what makes this tune so fun, is that you can just improvise all day long on it. It's a great tune, but I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, just give me a holler.